The station commander's holographic form flickered in Sarah's quarters, its three eyes blinking in that peculiar Valkyrian pattern that meant finality. Effective immediately, human Sarah. Your contract with Outpost Kepler 9 is terminated. You will depart on the next supply vessel in 48 cycles. Sarah stood frozen, her hand still holding the nutritional paste she'd been preparing for the evening meal. Behind her, she heard the soft scraping of small claws on metal flooring. The cubs, her cubs, though they weren't hers, not really. They belonged to various species scattered across the station, orphaned or abandoned by parents who deemed the frontier outpost too dangerous. Too remote, too inconvenient. Commander Thex, may I ask why? Sarah's voice remained steady, though her heart hammered against her ribs. The hologram's mandibles clicked. The Galactic Child Care Council has deemed your methods unorthodox. Humans are not certified caretakers in 17 of the 20 species currently under your supervision. The liability is unacceptable. The connection severed before Sarah could respond. She turned slowly to find 6 pairs of eyes watching her from the doorway. Nyx, a small Valkyrian cub no larger than a human toddler, stood at the front. His carapace was still soft, a pale blue that would darken with age. He clutched his sleep pod blanket in his tiny claws. Sarah leaving? Nyx's translator rendered his chittering into words, though it couldn't capture the tremor in his voice. Yes, little one, I have to go. Sarah knelt down, bringing herself to their level. Nyx turned to the others. Pip, the crystalline Ardelian whose fractured wing Sarah had carefully splinted. Rook, the Morinthian with fur that changed color with emotion, now cycling through anxious grays. Zeta and Kappa, the twin Nexian tadpoles who'd learned to laugh from watching human videos. And Mira, a synth-born whose previous caretakers had treated her as defective machinery rather than a child. Then we go too, Nyx said simply. He scuttled back into the common room, and Sarah heard the unmistakable sound of a storage container being dragged across the floor. Nyx, wait. Sarah followed, but stopped short at the scene unfolding before her. The small Valkyrian cub had pulled out his personal belongings container and was methodically packing his few possessions. The puzzle sphere Sarah had taught him to solve. The picture he'd drawn of all of them together. The small fragment of crystal from his homeworld that his mother had left him. Nyx, you can't come with me. You have to stay here. They'll assign a new caretaker. No. It was Pip who spoke now, her crystalline body chiming with agitation. You're our caretaker. You fixed my wing when Medbay said I'd never fly again. You learned my lullaby phonetically even though human vocal cords can't produce our frequencies correctly. Rook's fur flashed bright red. Determination. You sat with me through the nightmares. Every single one. 73 nights. The Nexian twins began to hum in harmony, their way of showing distress. Sarah had spent months learning to distinguish their individual sounds. Their preferences, their fears. Mira spoke last. Her synthetic voice perfectly modulated yet somehow conveying more emotion than any of them. You are the first person who called me she, who gave me a name instead of a designation number, who told me my dreams matter. Sarah felt something break in her chest. The Galactic Child Care Council didn't understand. They saw species specifications, liability waivers, certification requirements. They saw a human who'd stepped beyond her authorized role, who'd taken in cubs that weren't supposed to be her responsibility. They didn't see what happened in the quiet moments. When Nyx woke from dreams of his mother and Sarah would hold him, humming nonsense songs until he settled. When Pip's wing ached and Sarah would sit with her for hours, telling stories to distract from the pain. When Rook's fur would cycle through colors so fast it made him dizzy, and Sarah would place gentle hands on his shoulders, grounding him. They didn't see the family that had formed in the gaps of the station's cold efficiency. More sounds of packing echoed through the quarters now. Each cub was gathering their things with a determination that was distinctly human in its stubbornness. You can't all fit in my quarters on whatever ship I end up on, Sarah said weakly, though she was already calculating spaces in her mind, already thinking of solutions. Then we'll be small, Pip chimed. We're good at being small. We'll share food, Rook added. We won't be trouble, Zeta and Kappa harmonized. Nyx approached Sarah again, his storage container dragging behind him. He looked up at her with those 3 eyes, so alien and yet so achingly familiar after 2 years of reading bedtime stories reflected in them. You taught us, he said. his translator crackling slightly. You taught us that family isn't about same species or certifications or what councils say. You taught us that family is who stays, who shows up, who holds on even when hard. Sarah's vision blurred. I did teach you that, didn't I? So we show up, Nick said. We hold on. We stay. Sarah looked around at the 6 cubs, at their packed containers and their resolute faces, at this impossible family she'd built in the margins of space. The Galactic Childcare Council would have a bureaucratic fit. Station Command would cite 17 regulations. There would be forms, arguments, legal complications. But Sarah had learned something during her time on Kepler 9, something that humanity had always known in its bones. Sometimes the most important rules were the ones you broke for the right reasons. She took a deep breath and smiled. All right then, let's figure out how to pack 7 beings into a human-sized berth. And someone needs to draft a very strongly worded letter to the Galactic Childcare Council. Nix's carapace brightened to a happy azure. Behind him, 6 more containers began their journey toward the door, pulled by small hands and claws and appendages, each one filled with the treasures of childhood and the unshakable belief that wherever Sarah went, they belonged too. In the end, it wasn't humanity's technology or strength that made them remarkable. It was their stubborn, illogical, beautiful insistence that love transcended species, that family was a choice, and that no council in the galaxy could sign away what truly mattered. The cubs had learned well from their human. They were coming home.